College football's evolving fast. For dedicated fans of the sport, it's been really hard to keep up with all the changes these days. The past 3 seasons, we've seen the creation of the transfer portal, which leads to thousands of student athletes transferring to new schools every year. There's the advent of NIL, which often plays a role in those transfers. There's radical conference realignment and, dismemberment. And coming soon, there's the expansion of the playoffs from 4 teams to 12. Is your head spinning? My head's spinning because that's a lot of changes to digest in such a short period of time. We're seeing traditions that are decades old going away. But it's important to remember that college football has always been changing, and also that there are some things that will always be the same. And one of those things is that each second Saturday in December, the John W. Heisman Memorial Trophy will be awarded to the most outstanding player in college football. And in the interest of preserving and expanding upon this incredible tradition that is the Heisman Trophy, we've started this podcast. And we're doing it because we've got some stories to tell, some amazing stories, not only about the current group of players trying to win the Heisman Trophy. We're also going to take a deep dive into Heisman history and talk to the former players who won the Heisman back in the day when everything was different. And as we connect the past with the present, we're going to peel back some of those layers of history that have maybe obscured what the Heisman Trophy is all about. I mean, this is probably the most misunderstood institution in college football, but no longer. The Heisman Trophy is more than just a trophy. It's also a charitable trust with a vital mission to use the power of the Heisman Trophy to help underserved communities all around the country. You probably didn't know that, but if you listen to this podcast, you will. And come December, when Heisman Week descends upon New York City, if you listen to this podcast, it'll be like having a backstage pass at the Heisman ceremony itself. That being said, it's time to kick things off.
Welcome to the official Heisman Trophy Podcast.
Hello. Chuck Conrad with a kickoff. Roy Evans, strong leg, end over end. Sanders takes it 1 yard deep to the end zone. Up the middle, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35.
Here's your host, Chris Houston.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the first episode of the official Heisman Trophy Podcast. As the man said, I'm your host, Chris Houston, and let me tell you, you are in for a real treat if you love college football and you like to follow what's going on with the Heisman Trophy race. We've got a fantastic show lined up for you today. Later on, we're going to check in with a member of the Heisman Trust, Jim Corcoran. And now that high school football is underway all around the country, we're going to share some conversations we had recently with some high schools with very strong connections to the Heisman Trophy. But we're going to kick off our first episode with a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. There's probably no one more fitting to appear on the first episode of the official Heisman Trophy podcast than the only player to win 2 Heisman trophies. I'm talking about 1974 and 1975 winner Archie Griffin of The Ohio State University. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Look forward to it.
I want to talk with you today a little bit about the accomplishment of having won 2 Heismans. Before you won that second Heisman, there had only been 4 players who'd even tried. There was Doc Blanchard, there was Doak Walker, there was Vic Janowitz, and there was Roger Staubach. What do you think you did differently, or what do you think changed for you to where suddenly you were able to win that second Heisman?
Chris, I don't know if I did anything different. My whole thing going into that second year was just to be the best that I could possibly be. I understood that nobody had won it twice. Did I expect to win it twice? Not really, because nobody had won it twice. But what I did is I wanted to make sure that I gave it my very, very best shot. And that meant that I had to train harder than I had done the year before. That meant that I had to be mentally prepared, better than I'd ever been before. And it meant that, I had to be on a football team that was as good as it was the year before. And all those things just seemed to happen. But the best thing that I think I did was got it out of my mind. And I wanted to make sure that I was just being the best player that I could possibly be. And if things would work out, then that's what they would do.
I read somewhere that Coach Woody Hayes said that you came into that 1975 fall camp with the attitude that you were basically trying to win back your starting job. Does that sound right?
Oh, absolutely. You had to. I mean, and I always felt that anyway. I mean, every year I went into training camp as if I'm fighting for a starting spot because, I remembered that, when I was a freshman, I ended up playing and a couple older guys didn't get that opportunity to start because I did. So there could be a freshman or a sophomore that could come in and have a great season just like I did early in my career. So I always approached it that way. But the main thing was just being the best that I could possibly be, knowing that, the good Lord up above, if it was meant for me to win it a second time, it would happen. If it wasn't, then it wasn't going to happen. But I did not want to be able to say, or anybody to be able to say, that I didn't give it my best effort. And that's what I went into training camp and into the season trying to do, give it my very, very best effort.
As you were doing that and you're looking at the preseason going into that year, you've got Joe Washington out of Oklahoma. He was probably your main challenger. And then there's some other guys who were considered dark horses at the time. Tony Dorsett out of Pittsburgh was going to be a junior. You had Chuck Muncie out of California, who probably wasn't that well known just yet. And then you had, whoever the latest USC tailback was going to be. In this case, it was Ricky Bell. Do you think, having already won the Heisman, do you felt like you were kind of playing with some house money in a sense that you kind of had an advantage over these guys mentally?
I really didn't feel like I had an advantage because, again, nobody had won it twice. So obviously there was no advantage to winning it as a junior. Certainly your name was known, but all those guys that you mentioned, Joe, Tony Dorsett, Chuck Muncie, Ricky Bell, all those guys, excellent football players, great football players, as a matter of fact. So, I knew that they could win it just as easily as I could. And again, my whole thing was just being the best that I could be. I didn't want to worry about winning. Now, deep in my heart, I wanted to win it. But, if you think about it like that, it's going to really put a burden on you. And then early after I'd won it, people kept saying, "Hey, Archie, you got another chance to win the Heisman Trophy. Good luck. You're going to win it." Da, 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 patting me on my back, all those kind of things. But deep in my heart, I didn't know if that was possible because nobody had done it. But deep in my heart also, if you asked me if I wanted to win it, yeah, I wanted to win it because Woody Hayes used to have this saying. He always said, "You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You never stay the same." So kind of deep down, I was thinking, well, in order for me to be at least the same or better, I probably need to win the Heisman Trophy. And that put a lot of pressure on me thinking that way. So I tried to get it out of my mind and not really think about it. I can remember one day reading a verse in the book of Psalms, Psalms 37:4, where it says, "Delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart." And when I read that verse, it was like somebody just lifted a big weight off my shoulder because that verse told me that my job was to find joy in serving the Lord. And if I would do that, he'd do one of two things. He'd take that desire away from me of wanting to win a Heisman Trophy or give it to me as a gift. And he gave it to me as a gift.
Well, it certainly seems like you played with a lot of joy in the first few games of that 1975 season. Just looking at those rushing totals, you had a great start. You had 111 yards against Michigan State, so you were able to get a little revenge after losing to the Spartans the previous year. And then you had a big game against Penn State, 128 yards. They were number 10 at the time. 157 against North Carolina, and then a really big 160-yard game against number 5 UCLA. What were you feeling about your chances after that initial stretch?
Didn't really think about it, Chris. Just wanted to be the best I could be. I'm serious. I just wanted to go out and do what I could for my team. I mean, my whole thing at that time, or our whole thing as a team at that time, was to win a Big Ten championship, was to win a championship, get a chance to go out to the Rose Bowl. And that year, I remember before the season started, I think there were some who predicted that we'd lose 3 of our first 4 games because of those teams that you talked about. Michigan State, who had beaten us the year before. Penn State obviously always has a great football team. And UCLA, they were a strong football team. And North Carolina was no slouch either. I mean, so all those teams were doggone good. And so there were people who thought we'd lose 3 of our first 4 games, and we wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So as a team, we went out to play the best football we could, and ended up playing pretty doggone good games against all those teams early in our season. But those were great accomplishments to win those particular football games.
Let's talk about fullback Pete Johnson. He scored 25 touchdowns that year. Did you ever think that he was maybe taking some of your touchdowns away that might have helped you get the second Heisman?
I knew the system that I played in. The system that I played in, our fullback was going to be the leading touchdown getter every year. And if you look back over the years, you'll see that Pete Johnson, he was had the most touchdowns, leading touchdown scorer. Champ Henson, leading touchdown scorer. My job was to move the ball up and down the field, and we get inside the 10-yard line, or we get on goal line. My job was to block. I just tried to do my job, and those guys did their job for me, when we were in the middle of the field moving the football. So, we all had our jobs to do, and that's what we tried to do. And it was a successful formula for us. Pete was a fantastic fullback. I was fortunate. I mean, when I look at my career at Ohio State and my time at Ohio State, hey, it couldn't have been any better. I always say that I was at the right place at the right time with the right people to make the possibility of winning a Heisman Trophy possible. And I was fortunate enough to get 2 because of being in the right place at the right time with the right people. And I'm talking about my coaches. I'm talking about the players I played with, that offensive team that we had, our backfield, Pete Johnson, Cornelius Green, Brian Bashnagel. We had great chemistry, and we played extremely well together. And to do what we did, you had to have a great offensive line. And I was very fortunate every year during my time at Ohio State to have a great offensive line.
I can imagine there was a lot of pressure that you were feeling as you headed into November of 1975, both on the team level and on the individual level. But you guys were doing great. You guys were undefeated. You'd had a good season, and you had worked your butt off. And now you got to the point where it was time for the Heisman to be decided. And then you finally got that call. It must have been an amazing feeling of relief to win that second Heisman and to know that all the work you'd put into it had really paid off.
Well, at that time, I mean, I felt that we had a very successful season as a team. And again, I left it up to the good Lord up above because, it was out of my control. I mean, I didn't vote. I mean, all I could do is be the best football player that I could be. And if it was meant for me to win it, it would happen. If it wasn't, I wouldn't win it.
Well, you could vote. You had a vote, right?
No, I didn't vote at that time. I was still playing.
Oh, okay.
And maybe I could, but I didn't know it. And I didn't vote.
Right.
Yeah, and I did not vote. So I did not vote. So, yeah, I mean, I left it up pretty much to the voters. But again, I kind of got it out of my mind and left it up to all the voters to vote for who they thought would be that player. But I must say that that year, that competition, those players, all of those guys. I mean, I love Joe Washington. I love Tony Dorsett and Chuck Muncie and I had good relationships. So, and Ricky Bell. I mean, all those guys were guys that I admired, loved to watch them play, loved to watch them run. So, if I didn't win it, I wasn't going to feel bad about it or anything because I know that I gave it my very, very, very shot. But if any of those guys would have won it, I'd have been happy for them as well because they were outstanding football players, great football players. If you really want to call it what it is, they were great football players, and I enjoyed watching them, enjoyed playing during the time that they played.
Now, if you had voted that season and excluding yourself, who would you have voted for, or who would you have put on your ballot?
Well, you get 3 places to vote for. I'll probably. I don't know how I'd have done it, but Joe Washington would have been in there, and probably Chuck Muncie and Tony. I couldn't get 4 votes, but those guys would have been in there, no question. because they were excellent.
So there must have been something in the water in the 1975-76 school year for the Big Ten, because you won your second Heisman in the fall, and then in the spring, Indiana basketball won the national title. They went undefeated, and they're the last basketball team in college to go undefeated. And so even today, whenever the last team that is undefeated in a season loses their game, some of Bobby Knight's ex-players call him up and congratulate him. So I was wondering if there's a little bit of that with you. Like, do some of your ex-teammates say, hey, you survived it? Like, for instance, when Lamar Jackson didn't win again, did they say, hey, you survived another round, you're still the only one? Does that happen?
Yeah, I do get
in these circles?
I do get calls like that, Chris. People, family certainly wants you to remain that way, but it doesn't bother me, man. It really doesn't bother me because I was blessed to win it twice, so I know if I can do it, somebody else can do it as well. So I don't let that kind of thing bother me. I'm happy for whoever wins the Heisman Trophy, because it is a fabulous award. It's an award that changes your life. And I'm really happy for whoever wins the Heisman.
So you had the 4 guys before you came along, and then you have had 10 guys after you who've tried to win that second Heisman. And now Caleb Williams of USC is the 11th player after you, 15th overall, to try to duplicate your feat. What do you think he has to do to win the Heisman this year?
Well, I think he has to make sure that he gets out of his mind worrying about the Heisman. I don't think he can spend his time worrying about the Heisman. I think he needs to concentrate on being the best football player that he could be at USC, making sure that he's doing all the things that he needs to do to keep his teammates pumped up, because you don't win the Heisman as an individual. You really win it as a team. I mean, you can't win it by yourself. You need those teammates. You need those guys working hard and making sure that they're playing the best football that they could play. And if you're the guy in that offense that shines, then you're going to get the accolades that you deserve to get. But I don't think he can worry about winning the Heisman Trophy. I think he just has to worry about being the best player that he could be and being the best teammate he can be to his teammates, and making sure that he helps them to be the best team as a whole that they can be.
He's one of the few guys who publicly professed wanting to win the second Heisman. I think maybe there's a little bit of sense of people want to downplay the idea of going for 2, and maybe he's embracing that. Do you like that approach, or do you think it's better to take the other approach?
Well, I think each individual approaches it the way that helps them. I mean, that might motivate him to play even harder, and if that does and it works for him, then that's just fine. But from my standpoint, I try not to worry about it. And it's hard not to worry about it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not something that's easy to do. But I try to put it out of my mind and just concentrate on being the best that I could be for my teammates and for our team, because I wanted more than anything to be a Big Ten champion for the 4th year. And that was what was most important to me. And if I won the Heisman Trophy, then so be it. And that's great. But as I told you earlier, going into that season, during the off season, deep down in my mind, my thoughts were, hey, to be better than I was the year before, at least the same as I was the year before, I needed to win the Heisman. Well, that was more of a distraction than anything. So I had to get that distraction out of my mind and just concentrate on being the best player that I could be and being the best I could be for our football team. That's what was most important to me. And lo and behold, the good Lord blessed me and gave me a second Heisman Trophy. And I'm so very thankful for that.
Well, you've been a tremendous ambassador for the Heisman Trophy over the years. Just a few more questions for you. Kind of curious, where do you keep your 2 Heisman trophies?
Well, I've got one here with me, not right here where I'm sitting, and I've got one at the Ohio State University in the Student Union. The ballroom in the Student Union is named in my honor, and I have one of those trophies sitting in the ballroom where people can view it as they come to the Student Union.
What's your favorite Heisman Trophy moment by someone other than yourself?
By someone other than myself. I don't know that I'll call it my favorite, but the Heisman moment I think mostly is when Desmond Howard struck the poles in the end zone. It would have been
Hello, Heisman.
yeah, and 19 had to be 1991. I remember that because I didn't happen to go to that game. I was at home. My youngest son was born that weekend, but when Desmond scored that touchdown and struck the Heisman poles, that's one that sticks out in my mind. And it's shown all the time. You still see that. But I thought that was kind of neat. I mean, I know it was against Ohio State, and I would never have done that. But,
yeah, I think you're but committing sacrilege.
Yeah. But the fact that he did that, it showed me that he had a lot of confidence that he was going to win that award, and he did.
So going back to your junior year, when did you first realize that you were probably going to win the Heisman?
During my junior year, I never realized that I was going to win the Heisman. It was one of those things where I went through the season. My sophomore year, I had finished fifth in the Heisman voting. So I knew that, people were aware of me. But again, I just went into the season to win a championship. That's what it was all about. And I was just a junior. So, even if you didn't win as a junior, you still have another year. But I did not focus my mind on winning the Heisman Trophy. Winning championships, what was important to me. And winning the Heisman Trophy was a result of being on some great teams that had great seasons and won Big Ten championships. So, I wasn't thinking about winning the Heisman Trophy as a junior. I felt that I was in that area of being one of the good running backs that year, one of the top running backs that year. But, I wasn't thinking win the Heisman Trophy. That just wasn't something I would think of. That's not how I approached the season or how I approached the game. I approached the game as being the best I could be during that game and being the best team that we could possibly be at the end of that season and getting that opportunity to win a Big Ten championship and go to the Rose Bowl. Those were the things that we shot for as a team.
You were in the first freshman class that was eligible, right?
Absolutely.
1972.
1972, yep.
But you've talked about being in the right place at the right time. Was that one of those things that was right place, right time in the sense that, like, you had this freshman year to sort of build up your momentum a little bit and get your name out there? Do you think you would have won 2 Heismans if it had been under the old system with freshman teams?
Chris, I never really thought about it that way because, my freshman year, we were all eligible. But that might have made a difference. You never know, because I don't know that if I'd have gone into my sophomore year, that, I would have ended up finishing fifth in the voting as a sophomore, being the first year that I had the opportunity to play on the varsity. I don't know that would have been the case, but it could have been the case, because when you look at it now, you see freshmen finishing high in the voting. I mean, freshmen seem to do well, and they seem to get a lot of votes in the Heisman. But I don't know that happened back then, but it would have been a possibility.
Who do you think should have won the Heisman that didn't?
Oh, man. Who do I think should have won the Heisman that didn't? I can't give you an answer to that, because I tell you what, all the guys that won the Heisman, in my opinion, deserve to win the Heisman Trophy.
Who's the toughest player you ever played against, and why?
The toughest player I ever played against, in college football, I'd have to go as a team. I don't want to say an individual player, but as a team, I always came out of those games against Michigan pretty bruised up. Those guys were very, very physical. Every game that I played against them was a very, very physical game. And there were times that I thought after those games, I'm glad that we don't have a game the next week, because on a couple occasions I would not have been able to play because those games were so physical.
You're obviously one of the most famous players in college football history. Where's the strangest place that you've ever been recognized as a Heisman Trophy winner? Was it, maybe you were on vacation in Italy somewhere, or you're washing your hands in McDonald's or something, and someone said, "Hey, that's Archie Griffin." Like, where was this? Where did you least expect to be recognized, and someone found you?
I would say I ran the Alumni Association for Ohio State, and we were over in England, and we were at a play in England, and I was recognized by some folks, and that probably was a place that I was not expecting to be recognized. But we were watching a play, and people said, "OH." I said, "I-O." And they said, "Archie Griffin." And that was kind of special, actually. It's kind of special being out of the country. And I'm not a big guy. I mean, so you wouldn't recognize me because of my size or anything, or think anything special, because I'm only 5'8", and so it's not something that really stands out. So when somebody recognizes you with that being the case, then they must know something about Ohio State or know something about football.
There you have it, folks. That's the two-time Heisman Trophy winner, Archie Griffin of The Ohio State University. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show. We had a great time talking with you. We hope to see you again soon and wish you good health.
Well, thank you for having me.
Take an even deeper dive into Heisman lore by going to Heisman.com, home to all things Heisman, including news, bios, and the latest on all the winners, plus updates on the Heisman Trophy Trust and its charitable mission. It's the A to Z for everything Heisman, from Alan Amici to Danny Werfel. We really need a Heisman winner whose name begins with Z. Before we move on to the rest of the show, we're going to take the time to commemorate two members of the Heisman fraternity who have passed away in recent months. Just recently, we lost 1947 Heisman winner Johnny Lujack of Notre Dame. He was the oldest living Heisman winner at age 98. He died in July in Naples, Florida. And in early January, 1979 winner and USC Trojan Charles White lost his battle with cancer. He was 64. Lujack was one of Notre Dame's all-time early greats, and he won the school's second Heisman Trophy in 1947 after leading the Fighting Irish to a 9-0 season as a senior. He threw for 777 yards and ran for 139 yards in his Heisman-winning season, leading the Irish to a national championship for the third time after also doing so in 1943 and 1946. Now remember, Lujack served in the U.S. Navy during World War II for nearly 3 years between that 1943 title and the one in 1946. And while he was gone, Army won back-to-back titles in 1944 and 1945, led by West Point's own Heisman legends, Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside, Doc Blanchard and Glenn Davis. Back with the Irish in 1946, Lujack's number 2 Notre Dame team squared off against top-ranked Army in front of about 75,000 at Yankee Stadium in a game that really caught the nation's attention. The game famously finished in a 0-0 tie, with Lujack making a game-saving tackle, crossing the entire field in the process to stop Blanchard from scoring. It was the stuff of legends. Charles White was a legendary figure for the Trojans in his own right. The third Heisman-winning tailback from USC following Mike Garrett and O.J. Simpson, White was a powerful and prolific running back. He rushed for 6,245 yards during his 4-year career as a Trojan, still the school record. He led USC to a share of the 1978 national title thanks to a huge junior year when he rushed for 1,760 yards and 13 touchdowns. He was the Heisman favorite entering the 1979 season, and he lived up to every bit of those expectations. Despite missing about a game and a half due to injury, he led the nation in rushing with 1,803 yards and 18 scores as the Trojans finished 10-0-1 on the year. He had 4 200-yard efforts during the regular season and had 3 more games where he rushed for at least 185. In the last 10 games of the season, he averaged 201 yards per game. You might recall, Billy Sims of Oklahoma was the defending Heisman winner that year, but White left no doubt about the vote, with Sims finishing second. White capped his brilliant USC career with one of the greatest performances in bowl history, rushing for 247 yards on 39 carries in a dramatic 17-16 victory over Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. His diving touchdown with 1:32 to play was the deciding score. The Heisman Trust mourns the loss of Charles White and Johnny Lujack. They will be missed. Hey college football fans, your name doesn't need to be Nick Saban or Marcus Allen or Reese Davis to attend the Heisman Gala. That's the annual celebration in New York to honor the Heisman Trophy winner the day after he's announced. Tickets to the gala are open to the public and will go on sale soon. So be sure to keep checking at Heisman.com for information on how to secure your seat and witness Heisman history. The dog days of August have come to a close, and that means another season of college football is getting ready to drop. While your favorite college team puts the finishing touches on its fall camp, and the band prepares its halftime show, football on Friday nights has already kicked off. Crucial to the origin story of every Heisman winner is the time he spent at high school. High schools from 27 states, plus the District of Columbia, have produced Heisman Trophy winners. Recently, we talked to representatives from 4 of those high schools, and one thing we discovered is that the impact of the Heisman upon these schools and these communities can last for years, if not decades. Take, for example, the most recent high school to produce a Heisman Trophy winner, Gonzaga College High in the Washington, D.C. area.
1, 2, 3!
That's Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams leading a rendition of his school's fight song. But that's not USC's fight song, and that's not his Trojan teammates singing along with him. What you heard was Williams leading his prep alma mater Gonzaga College High School in their fight song during a visit to the Washington, D.C. area this past May. He had returned to his high school campus to launch an East Coast branch of his Caleb Cares Foundation, an organization devoted to curbing bullying. The school celebrated Williams' return with a pep rally and retired his number 18 jersey. But Williams was already a larger-than-life figure at Gonzaga. As you might expect, him winning the Heisman was a thrill for the entire school. Members of the 2023 senior class knew Williams for 2 years when they were freshmen and sophomores. So when they gathered together to watch the Heisman ceremony last December, the outcome was personal for many.
And the winner for 2022, Caleb Williams.
For longtime Gonzaga head football coach Randy Trivers, this new connection with the Heisman Trophy goes even deeper. That someone from his program is now a member of the most prestigious fraternity in sports is something he can use to motivate current and future players to dream big.
I think it gives young men in the program something to shoot for. There's only 88 Heisman Trophy winners, so it's not like you try to fool young men and say, hey, you're the next Heisman Trophy winner necessarily, but just the spirit of being able to give the right type of effort, having goals, having a plan to achieve those goals, and then having the courage to go get it, to go execute and try your best. I think that's the spirit of Caleb Williams and winning the Heisman. Just hey, you have a dream, let's go chase it, and have the courage to do it, and then the fortitude to when challenged, just keep going after it.
As much as his play on the football field serves as a great example to follow, the work by Williams off the field aligns well with Gonzaga's values.
Really the idea of impacting everything outside of who you are in the best way that you can. It really, his foundation is all about that. Him coming back, it was awesome for, as you said, we had the jersey retirement. It's the first jersey in the history, 202 years of Gonzaga College High School and over 100 years of playing football. The first jersey, he wore number 18 here to be retired. But the cool thing is what he's doing, using his fame as a platform to really be a great man for others. So it's a great thing for us to see.
While Gonzaga High is the most recent high school to join the Heisman ranks, Dubuque High in Dubuque, Iowa is home to the first winner.
It is indeed a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to announce the 43rd recipient of the Heisman Trophy, and it goes to Earl Campbell of the University of Texas.
The voice you just heard announcing the winner of the 1977 Heisman was Jay Berwanger from the Dubuque High class of 1932. In 1935, he won what was then called the Downtown Athletic Club Trophy while playing for the University of Chicago. A year later, the award was renamed after the late John Heisman. For decades, Berwanger's time at Dubuque High was the stuff of legend. His was a name from the distant past that perhaps didn't resonate with current generations. But in 2013, the high school erected a statue of Berwanger that sits on a 4-foot stand adjacent to its football field. Now, football players at the school tap the statue's foot each day on the way to practice.
If they're there competing on Dalzell Field, they'll go over to the statue on their way to the locker room. They'll swipe the foot. So eventually, we're expecting that area to be a little shinier than the rest of the statue, to say the least.
That was Brent Cook, the assistant principal in charge of athletics at Dubuque, which also houses a copy of Berwanger's first Heisman. Though he's not from Dubuque himself, he's worked at the school for 11 years and sees the trophy as a symbol for the school, particularly its student athletes.
I think like a lot of small towns across the Midwest, you're not from that town unless you were born here. So I'm not sure if I'll ever be, from a Dubuquer's point of view, a Dubuquer, but for 11 years I've been here. But prior to that, probably just a few years before I came here, I didn't know about Jay Berwanger myself. So the fact that we have the very first trophy sitting in our hallway is a great thing and a great way to teach our kids about our history and not only history about our own school and people that were a part of it, but history across the country with the Heisman Trophy.
When Cook says across the country, he's not exaggerating.
We had a gentleman just kind of cold call our school several years ago before COVID. And he said he was in the area and wanted to come, heard that we had this statue. And so he wanted to come and see it. And he was from Georgia, I think, a retired military person. And basically he and his buddies, but he in particular, had made it a point to come through and he made it a point to go see where all the Heisman trophies players were or statues for those people. And in his trip, he drove over to Dubuque. And so, yeah, we made it a point to go outside. And I think at the time, I'm not sure if he knew we had the actual Heisman inside. And so we met outside, we talked, and it was a good time. And then I said, well, he goes, well, I'm going to take some pictures here. And I said, well, let's take some pictures. But I said, we'll do one better. We're going to go inside and I'll get the trophy out for you. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, we're going to go get the trophy out of the trophy case. And so we took some pictures and he took a picture, holding it. And like a lot of people, that's 27 pounds. And that's a heavy statue. But it turned out to be one of those things that is a reminder to me that's surprising that other people across the nation would know about Jay Berwanger, know about his situation, and want to come take a part of that.
If that gentleman were to journey to modern-day high school in Santa Ana, California, he'd have the opportunity to take selfies with 3 different Heisman trophies. That's because a record 3 Heisman Trophy winners have come through modern day. Notre Dame's John Hewitt was the first former Monarch to win the Heisman in 1964. He was joined in 2004 by USC's Matt Leinart, and then finally, Alabama's Bryce Young won it in 2021. Former NFL offensive lineman Khalid Holmes is a first-year associate head coach at Modern Day. He's an alum at the school, the class of 2008. His older brother Alex was a teammate of Leinart's at USC when he won the Heisman, and Khalid starred at USC as well. So he's used to being surrounded by Heisman trophies.
Well, we have Heisman Lane, which I was walking down earlier today, which it's a part of our campus that kind of is the line between where a lot of the athletics begin and then where a lot of the classrooms are. It's very visible. It's something that every student here knows about, walks every day, sees it, sees the banners that they have on the lampposts, and of course the street signage that says Heisman Lane. As well, when you walk into the gym, the basketball gym, there are cabinets displaying John and Matt's Heismans, and then another space recognizing Bryce's accomplishment as well. It's something the school is very proud of. It would be a really impressive feat if you came to Modern Day for even a couple weeks or a couple hours, honestly, and didn't recognize or at least learn about what the Heisman is.
Modern day's Heisman span the course of 60 years, with Hewitt graduating from the school in 1961, and then 40 years later, Leinart graduated in 2001. 19 years after that, Bryce Young was from the class of 2020. So it's no wonder their accomplishments still loom large over the school.
The level of success that's been established here and has come to be expected is something that has to motivate you, and you have to be mindful of it in the sense that, there are expectations and there is a legacy that we need to live up to.
Modern day's football program is more than just the 3 Heisman trophies. The school can claim more players who have gone on to the NFL than many colleges can. But for first-year head coach Frank McManus, the Heisman is woven tightly within the Monarchs' fabric.
Kids are widely keen and understand the significance, obviously, of winning the Heisman. And now everyone comes in and dreams about the opportunity to possibly be the next guy. I mean, when we meet with colleges for players, there's always the thought that this could be the next guy. We were just talking to a recruiter the other day, a college that was in here, talking about one of our players that he thought potentially could be the next guy. So, like I said, that is something that's always in the back of the minds of all the players that come in here. And in all honesty, I sometimes find myself thinking, could this be a guy? Could this be that next guy? So it's the players, I think the coaches, I think the modern day community and faculty is always aware of that. There's always the potential for someone to come out of the school and win that award.
Young was the number 1 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, and he'll soon make his pro debut with the Carolina Panthers. Despite his busy schedule, Frank says he's been a big presence around the school.
Bryce comes back regularly, whether it's to Friday night games. This year we'll have some Saturday games. Bryce has come out to our youth passing league 7-on-7 games. He and his family just to say hi and chop it up with young guys, 7th and 8th graders. So having a Heisman and a number 1 pick to come out to your field and talk to the youth like that is an incredible opportunity. And obviously when he comes out to the field and gets a chance to see some of the guys that we currently have on our varsity field, it's always a kind of a treat.
The modern day Heisman connection extends throughout the generations. Leinart's son Cole is following in his dad's footsteps as a quarterback at Modern Day, but Matt has been a regular around the school for some time.
Obviously with Matt, his oldest son is out here playing quarterback, so he gets a chance to come out and see the practices and again chop it up a little bit with the guys and talk some shop and just have some fun. I mean, they get to see the kids get to see these guys in another light on a personal level, which is always great because I mean a lot of times you get to see these guys on TV and the greatness that they had, but what makes them so great is that their ability to kind of connect and talk with the kids on a personal level. John Hewitt is also a great man. I've had a chance to see him several times on campus, and his family is still. He's got I think it's his youngest grandson is starting here as a freshman this year, as well. So there's always opportunity to see the Hewitt family as well. So I think that's what that kind of separates Modern Day from a lot of other schools is the players of the past come back. They engage and speak with not only the football team, but also the modern day community. And so like, imagine being able to be a high school kid and be able to see and talk to guys that have excelled personally and achieved some of the greatest honor of college football. And they're just strolling around campus. You know what I mean? It's a unique opportunity. And I think that's what makes Modern Day special and different and differentiates itself from any other public or private school in America is that there's that kind of humility where you could be literally standing next to a Heisman and just talking and you wouldn't even know it.
Sitting in his office in Dallas, Woodrow Wilson High School head football coach John Fish angles for a just-out-of-reach school yearbook printed almost 90 years ago. In it, a young Davy O'Brien is listed among the seniors.
Let's see, this is from the class of 1934. And Davy's in here, and it's really cool. And he signed the yearbook from when he was in high school. And it's so cool to just look back. And I mean, here's this just little, you wouldn't notice him anywhere, if you're flipping those pages and then you see his name and his signature, and it's written like a high school kid would write a signature. And it's like, man, here's this guy who best college quarterback in the country, the award's named after him. He did all these great things at TCU, lived this amazing life. And man, he went to the same high school. I'm literally holding the yearbook that he signed.
Woodrow Wilson is not only home to 1938 Heisman winner Davy O'Brien of TCU, but also to 1987 winner Tim Brown out of Notre Dame. No other public high school in the country has more Heisman winners. The school is part of Dallas's huge independent school district, which includes 22 high schools that all play football. And in a state where Friday Night Lights was born, it can be hard to stand out. While the school does count rock and roll great Steve Miller and ZZ Top bassist Dusty Hill among its alumni, not to mention Mariano Martinez, the inventor of the frozen margarita machine, Fish needed a different angle. But just before starting his first season at Wilson in 2022, he found it.
We've coined ourselves, Heisman High here at Woodrow, and we have made it. It was kind of interesting when I took the job. It wasn't. I mean, it was kind of those things that everybody just kind of knew, and they thought, oh man, that's cool. They had 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and when I took over, one of the things that we talked about as a staff is, man, we have to find and lean into the things that are going to not only impact our kids, but are going to continue to set us apart from everybody else. And, I laughed about it. I said, because, man, there's some low-hanging fruit there at this high school with being the only public high school in the entire country that has 2 Heisman Trophy winners as alumni. And so from day one, it's been all about Heisman High. It's been all about building on who's the next one that it's going to be. There's hopefully there's a second grader sitting at Lakewood Elementary right now waiting, that's going to come through here and be the next one, And so I think that's something that for us, it's just been, it sets us apart. And so if we can instill that in our kids and just continue that mindset of being, having a standard that's higher than those around us, and always has been, and will continue to add to it, man, it makes us better.
And Fish's players have bought in.
They are all in on it. I think, again, when you're in the business of kids, you set expectations and kids want to meet them. And I think it's the same thing with the personality that you take on as a program. The kids, especially when you have some success and the kids can see something that is, they can grasp. It's not a slogan. It's not something that's just kind of like made up and you just kind of go with it. It's real. It's something they see. They walk the hallways and they see the walls and they see the trophies and they see the pictures and they're like, no, this is real. They walked the same high schools you walked. They went to the same classrooms you go to, and look at what they became. And so I think for our kids, it's more than just a mantra. It's something that they live out because they get to experience the same things that those guys did.
Wilson's original building dates back almost a century, but as facilities have been updated, there's now a lobby dedicated to both O'Brien and Brown. Through the years, Brown, who comes from the class of 1984, has been very active in the Wilson community, and his annual golf tournament supports the school's booster club.
Really, in all honesty, funds so much of our athletic programs here on campus just by that one golf tournament that he puts on and sponsors for us every single year. He comes out and plays in it. I've gotten to spend some time with him at that and just getting to talk to him and getting to know him. And he's such a good guy and just does so much for us that nobody sees. And that's the cool thing about Tim. He's not, he doesn't want a ton of attention. He isn't asking for, he's not even asking for a thank you. He does it because he cares, and he does it because it matters to him. Each next generation that comes to the school of being able to impact them in some way. And he does such a great job of supporting us with that.
Who knows? That support may one day propel another Woodrow Wilson Wildcat to the Heisman.
You never know. When Tim Brown was in high school and was doing all that he was doing at receiver, no one probably thought that he was going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. So you just don't know. And I think that's kind of cool for our kids, especially our young kids that, are still developing. Maybe it's a 7th grader that's scrawny and maybe a little behind. You don't know what that kid's going to be when he's 21, 22 years old, what they're going to develop into. And so we use that as a tool, for all kids to say, man, you just don't know, and so keep buying in, keep working, and, maybe one day you'll be holding that trophy.
This is Archie Griffin, 1974-1975's Heisman Trophy winner, and you're listening to the official Heisman Podcast.
Now it's time to check in with one of our Heisman Trophy trustees, Jim Corcoran. Jim, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here, Chris.
So can you share with our listeners a little bit about the trust and what it does?
I sure can. First of all, it's an honor to be a trustee. There's 11 of us, and we continue to expand over time. But, our job is our mission basically is to grow the legacy and preserve the integrity of the Heisman Trophy. And that's done in a couple of different ways. As everyone knows here, it's given out to the most outstanding college football player in the United States. And once that trophy is given out, we are a charitable trust, and we support both youth development programs around the country, as well as the Heisman High School Scholarship Program. And we also have a Heisman Humanitarian Award we give out every year. So our job as trustees is to not only protect the trophy, but to grow it and find ways that we can give our money away to youth development around the country.
I'm looking at your mission statement right now. It says, quote, "Our goal is to harness the power of the Heisman Trophy's legacy of athletic excellence to positively impact our nation's youth and provide more equitable opportunities for underserved communities." So that sounds like a pretty ambitious undertaking, so I'm wondering how you and your fellow trustees achieved that goal.
Well, it's, since I've been on the trust since 2001, after the Downtown Athletic Club closed up after 9/11, we put the trophy in trust and created this 501c3. So over that time frame, we've given out more than probably $22 million to different charities around the country, focused primarily early on in the tri-state area, but now we've expanded to Dallas and Atlanta and to Texas and to some other locations. The trust works with New York Community Trust. They're located right here in Manhattan, and we talk to them. And when you go in and you want to request a grant from the Heisman, you go in and fill out some forms on the website, and it comes up to New York Community Trust, and they vet those grants for us. They make visits. They go out and learn about the programs, find out about the budgets and what they're trying to accomplish, how many kids they're affecting, and then they come back and give us reports on, these are 50 different grants we received the last month, and here are 6 of them that we feel meet your mission, and then we go about deciding how much money we're going to give them. So it's a process, and I've been doing this for a long time. When you give away money in a charity, there's work to be done because, the last thing I'm sure people out there who like to give to foundations, they want their money to get results. They don't want it to go to, paying staff members or budget constraints or things like that. So, it's a great relationship we have with New York Community Trust, and we're expanding across the country. So I think more and more youth development programs are going to have the opportunity to request grants from the Heisman Trophy.
Anyone interested in applying for a charitable donation can go to Heisman.com. Is that correct? Under the charities tab?
Yes, you can. Sure can. And there's a window that you have to do it between. But yeah, you can go on there and it's looked at and then it's vetted. Like I said, I think we've given to hundreds of charities in the last 20 some odd years that I've been with the trophy. And it's about $22 million of grants that we've given out.
What about the rest of the trustees? Can you tell us a little bit about their backgrounds and how they became trustees?
Backgrounds are all different. No athletes on there, but a combination of 11 of us, all different types of jobs. But at some point, they were members of the Downtown Athletic Club, and they wanted to be a part of the club and the trophy. So we meet monthly, and then we, decide and talk about the things that are important to us, which are, our sponsors, how we maintain this money and how it's protected, it's invested, and then obviously try to give it away to great causes that we feel are dear to our hearts, as I would say.
You guys created the Heisman Humanitarian Award, which is a great award because it honors sports figures who are actively involved in the type of charity work that you guys also support. And it is an impressive list, a who's who of sports figures. And it's a diverse group as well, with athletes, men and women from all sports. You've got ice skaters and basketball players and golfers, not just football players. So I guess it just shows the power of the Heisman to be able to draw in such a impressive group of athletes.
We go out there and we search high and low in all different sports to find out who has really made a difference out there after their playing career. Some even during their careers, but most of them are doing this after they're done. And we go out there and we get bios on each one of them. We say very diversified. We've had Mia Hamm to Joey Cheeks, who ice skater in the Olympics, to Alan Page, the Minnesota Vikings defensive tackle. We've had a whole bunch across the board. So that can be tough, as you can imagine, right? You get 10 names in front of you, and you got to pick who you'd like to be the humanitarian. So we just do a voting process, 3, 2, 1. Pick your, and over time we've had some really great humanitarians.
Let's go back to the Heisman again. Once the award is given out in December, what's your next steps? At what point do you start looking at the next season?
After it's a busy weekend, as you can imagine. You've got the contenders come in Friday night with their families. We have a nice dinner. The television show presentation is on Saturday evening, where you would announce the winner. And then on Sunday, we have the black tie dinner with about 1,000 people to actually hand the winner the award. It's a nice 3 days, but it's a lot of work. And after you're done, we give it about a week, and then we all get together and we write down what we liked, what we didn't like, what was good, what was not good, how can we make it better. Make sure all the former winners that were here got home safely. Did they have a good time when they were here? Is there anything new they would like to see? So we're kind of always upgrading a little bit. We've moved from place to place. I don't know if the fans out there know this, but after 9/11, we used to have the events all at the Downtown Athletic Club, and that closed right next to the World Trade Centers after 9/11. So we've, over the last 20 some odd years, we've been at different locations. And right now we are at the Time Warner building on Saturday night where we make the presentation. So the trustees are a little worn out by the end of the 3 days, but it's a good time to reflect on how are we going to make this better next year. Was the location right? Was the transportation? All the things that would go into making sure everyone's comfortable and enjoying themselves. Because you'd be surprised, most of these contenders have never been to New York before. So there's a lot of things to see and do, whether it's going to a show during the day or going down to visit the 9/11 memorial. A lot of things for them to do. So it's busy, but it's fun. And we just kind of circle up a month later just to make sure while it's fresh in our minds, what could be better.
For those of you who have not been to New York City during Heisman weekend, I definitely recommend that one because New York City is not really a college football city. What happens, though, is that you get the Heisman Trophy winner, who is the toast of the town for a couple days. So it's pretty cool. You just have to avoid all those Santa Connors that also take over New York City that weekend. So, Jim, how did you become a Heisman Trophy trustee to the point where you're playing such a key role in one of college football's great traditions?
When you first come up here and you work on Wall Street, like everybody, you got to find a place to go work out. And around the corner was the Downtown Athletic Club. So I just happened to have joined the club as a young member. And then, that's where everybody goes at 4:05 after the markets close. And the Downtown Athletic Club had been there since 1934, 1935, maybe even earlier. And over time, I just got more and more involved with helping out with some of the events that we would have at the Downtown Athletic Club. And in 2001, the members voted me in as president. So it happened to be the year which 9/11 took place. So we didn't get to stay in the building very long after 9/11. But, when you become a member and then you become president, part of the role of being president is to announce the Heisman Trophy winner. So so I did that, and then we formed the trust, and I stayed on there. But you're 100% right. I have a passion for sports. These athletes are pretty incredible, and they do a lot of good things. And as you can imagine, when they announce your name, Chris, and they announce you as winner of the Heisman Trophy, it's funny to look at a 21-year-old young man who thinks he just won an award, and his life has been changed forever, because wherever he goes from that point on, you can ask anyone who won it. You are the Heisman Trophy winner in 19 whatever or 2000 whatever, and it'll stay with them. It'll change their lives forever, and it's really fun to watch and be around.
Yeah, there's no question that the title Heisman Trophy winner is one of the more powerful honorifics around, like former president or Academy Award winner or Nobel Prize winner. And that concludes part 1 of our interview with Heisman Trophy trustee Jim Corcoran. We'll play part 2 of the interview on a future episode. And next week, with a full slate of college football games on the horizon, we'll be having one of the best football players in the country stopping by for a chat. And who might that be, you wonder? You'll just have to come back next week to find out. The official Heisman Trophy podcast streams every Wednesday during the college football season and is hosted, co-produced, edited, and engineered by Chris Houston. Paul Goldberg is the executive producer and editor. Special shout out to Isaac Lowenkron, and big thanks to the Heisman Trophy Trust and its executive director Rob Whalen and associate director Tim Henning. The official Heisman Trophy podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find clips of our show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just go to @Heisman Trophy.